Hey, welcome back to Let's Animate as we work on working through my backlog, getting the old out onto the screen. And today, the old project we are still working on is our Force Awakens parody, featuring none other than the king of Disney himself, Mr. Mouse, as well as Mr. J.J. Abrams on another slide, anyway. We're going to continue on here today. I noticed my mouse isn't capturing. And I wonder why that is. That's probably good for a lot of people. There we go. Anyway, yeah, I'll try not to flail it around too much like I have a habit of doing, but let's just dive right in and pick up where we left off. We were drawing this Mickey Mouse agitated face, and we were going for a very that's the logo, a very attitude-driven, just fed up sort of Mr. Mouse, and that will evolve into this more sinister-looking mouse appearance. So what we should be doing is putting his mouth on a switch layer here that we can switch to, funnily enough, when we need it, as the scene demands. So if we're gonna make the smile mouth, let's get on that right now, and it is just literally a terrifying looking smile. Let's see what line width we're using. It's been a few days since my last recording, so I'm not really up to date on what width we were using, what line width, the color schemes. I might have to go back in my notes or flip back and forth to check for colors that we were using, like this flesh color for his face, which is actually pretty good. I should have these values written down. You can't see the values, but there's a red, green, and blue value associated with the color. So we're just gonna go ahead and get this very creepy smile that we want, apparently. Get this in shape here. I have to say, I don't have a lot to talk about today. It's been a slow couple of days. A little bit of work stuff to do today. I finished that a couple hours ago and find myself with an empty house for a certain amount of time, and like I am growing more and more fond of, I decided it would be a good time to do some recording. And so here we are. Not too exciting, but such is my life, I feel lucky a lot of ways, is for whatever reason I just don't have that that looks ridiculous. I just don't have that strange desire that a lot of people seem to have on social media, especially. That strange desire to compare myself with my life with other people's. I'm not, oh look, so and so's doing this, so and so's doing that. Looking at pictures on Facebook or Instagram or wherever other people are posting pictures these days, and think, oh wow, yeah, what an exciting life they have. And no, I prefer to do my own thing. I'm quite content to stay tuned out of all that. It just doesn't interest me. Nothing wrong with it. It's just I gotta focus on my own stuff, before I'm gonna go comparing myself to anybody else. I should really get my own house in order, so to speak. We'll just throw some textures in here, I guess. Some little lines here that looks horrible. That's brutal. One thing I was doing the other day was I was looking up vacant land in my province of residence, and I was surprised. I've always been under the assumption that land is crown land for the most part, that owned by the government basically, not privately. Um, Especially in the sort of the vast wilderness that surrounds me. But surprisingly, there's a lot of private land that is available out there, and large tracts of it for purchase and for relatively cheap. So when you hear about all these real estate crises and prices are outrageous and oh my god, and then you go and you see these huge acres and acres of land for, I mean, not peanuts. I mean, because it's money is money, and tens of thousands of dollars is not peanuts, but when you consider what you're getting for it, it really does feel like peanuts a lot of the time. And I was looking at some of that land today, thinking about, I might want to get myself involved in some of that stuff, land ownership and the like, become a land baron maybe, get myself some serfs. Start up an old-fashioned, I don't know, what did people grow in the Middle Ages? They weren't growing corn. They're growing wheat. Like if you were an old landowner in I don't know, 12, I can't even think. 1000, the year 1000. What were you growing? I don't know. You always hear, I've read books. I shouldn't say I've read books. I have read books, but I'm thinking of one book in particular when I say this. When I say, I've read books. Well, I'm thinking of one in particular. And the book I'm thinking of in particular was Pillars of the Earth. And I believe there was a female character in that book who was working a plot of land. She had her troubles and she had her problems, and people were trying to take advantage of her, like you would expect in a story set in this sort of 1000 time frame. Was it even 1000? I can't even remember now. It's been a lot of years since I read this book, but I can't remember what it was that she was growing. Must have been like a wheat, barley. I have no idea. I think we want to keep this line as simple as possible. Very straightforward. Very straight. But yeah, anyway, I was looking at land ownership. It's probably never going to happen, but you never know. So it's good to stay informed, and you see the areas of the country where this it's hunting land basically is what it is. It's multiple acres in remote areas of the province that a lot of them actually I think are currently held by Americans owning the land. They come up, they hunt, shoot our animals and stuff, and then leave, spend a little bit of money ideally, and then leave the country, go back home for a while. And I think a lot of what I was looking at are plots of land that they are now selling. Sometimes too, they'll get them all the land that they own surveyed, divvy it up into smaller plots of land, and sell like cottage properties, recreational vacation properties. They sell just the blank land, and then the person who buys it for the subdivided land, smaller plots for 30,000-50,000 with no building on it. And then you got to put your own camp on there. You've got to deal with the road issues, access issues. Sometimes you can only boat in. Sometimes there's no road for multiple miles and kilometers. And it poses its set of challenges, but it's interesting stuff. It's neat to it can be neat to kind of envision yourself in those situations. Living off the land a little bit, at least on a vacation sense. It's not like you're not going total. I heard a guy on the radio today. He was calling in. It's to the CBC, which is our government-funded radio broadcaster. And he's talking about how he lives off-grid. And he's been off-grid for years in a fairly unforgiving climate by and large. But yeah, especially in the winter, it gets very cold. He said he's been off grid for like almost 10 years. Like, that's 10 winters of chopping wood, like getting the wood. I don't know how, maybe he's buying the wood. It's possible you could buy the wood. You could even technically, I guess, buy it split, cut, bucked up and split already. But you're paying much more for it. But maybe he's doing that. And, but even still, even if you're getting it all pre-bucked, pre-bucked wood here, get your pre-bucked wood. Even if you're doing that, you're still looking at a lot of physical work. And this was an older guy, I guess is the point of my story here, is that he was not no spring chicken, so to speak. And he's out there living off the grid. He said he has this I can't remember how he said he charged his cell phone. I know he had a wind-up radio. That's how he was listening to the radio. The wood stove for heat, especially in the winter. Living in a trailer, like a mobile home, I assumed. That's the picture that I had anyway. He just said a trailer, I believe. And somehow he was charging his phone. I don't remember how he said he was charging his phone. Small solar panels, probably. In fact, I think he did say solar. I'm pretty sure he said small solar panels, which is very doable. It was odd. I grew up in these areas, remote areas. I had these sort of remote seasonal destinations where we could go to the lake and do some hunting and fishing and stuff like that. And, living off grid, quote unquote. My fingers are in quotes right now since you can't tell. Living off grid for, upwards of a week at a time. and in the winter as well. It's usually a weekend, a couple of nights, a Friday and Saturday night, back to the real world for Monday. Back home on Sunday night be prepared for the real world on Monday. And that we always thought was adventurous enough. But to be off grid completely, I don't even know what you would do for cook. Well, obviously he must be cooking on that wood stove. So he's got to, and that's the other thing. You got to heat that house in the winter and cook on it in the summer. You need a ton of wood. A ton. Assuming that's what he's doing. Unless he's running like 20 pounders of propane like for your barbecue. Is that what he's cooking on? Who knows? Interesting idea anyway. And that kind of lifestyle has always interested me. That off-grid sort of crackpot situation is pretty neat to me anyway. I don't know. It's definitely not everyone's cup of tea, because that would be it catches up with you, I would imagine, for sure. Oh great, was Mickey in that layer? I'm gonna undo and then undo again. Okay, yeah, so we just take that out. These are all in the Mickey. Yeah. Living like that would definitely catch up with you. Start to go a little squirrely. I was reading some Reddit posts, browsing through Reddit like people do. They were talking about, what did you learn while living in isolation, or what did you learn about yourself only by being alone, kind of thing. And people went on, and a lot of it comes from like mental instability or periods of mental decline that people have suffered. Sometimes they've come out on the other side, sometimes not. Sometimes that's what really gets me. Sometimes it's as simple as like a seasonal issue, right? There's that sad seasonal affective disorder. I don't know it. I'm sorry to butcher it like that, and it just has to do with the lack of sunlight. I think that's the very, very rudimentary understanding. I'm by no means an anything, really. To put it bluntly, I'm nothing, so don't take my word for it. But my understanding is that it's strongly connected to the change in sunlight exposure and the lack of sun that is common with the winter months in the northern hemisphere. And I can see that. I mean, it gets to you. I can remember working at a normal office job, a 9 to 5, and when it's December and January, 9 to 5 means you're coming home in the dark. You're driving home in the dark. You're going to work in the dark. You never see the sun. Sitting in an office all day. I mean, I was fortunate, and my job was like literally in front of the window. There's a big picture window in the front, in the storefront that butted onto the street, the main street. But still, I mean, you have no time. You have no time for yourself in the winter. Like, oh yeah, it's great. My boss has my sun-filled time, but what about me? I go home, I gotta shovel a driveway, then it's dark. I gotta do anything at home, and it's dark. You're taking out the garbage, it's dark. You're shoveling the driveway, it's dark. Load up the kids and take them to practice of some kind, it's dark. It is just always dark on your own time, and it catches up with you. So imagine being out there off grid, cranking up your radio, your little wind-up radio, cooking your beans or whatever it is you're eating on the stove, your wood stove, and you're listening to the CBC. Holy man. That's got to catch up with you. I wonder if this guy had a vehicle. If you had a vehicle, it can go into town, because he was near a town that I know, not where I'm from, but a town that I know, and he's got a phone, a cell phone presumably.